Raider Nation, we got some breaking news. Matthew Stafford is staying with the Los Angeles Rams, and I'm not going to lie, I'm not happy about it. To me, Matthew Stafford gave the Raiders an opportunity to win right away, which is what Pete Carroll wants, what Tom Brady wants, what John Spytek wants. Hell, it's what I wanted. And I know a lot of people are thinking, what the hell are the Raiders going to do now? I'm going to get into the latest around Stafford because I'm kind of surprised that he ended up staying with the Rams. We'll go through everything you need to know through that situation. But then there was a really big bombshell report that came out this morning in regards to if the Raiders miss out on Stafford. I'm going to call it the Plan B option, and I'm going to tell you what the Raiders are going to do now that Matthew Stafford is staying with the Rams. So Jordan Schultz was the first on this story, and Schultz has been the one that I think has covered this story the best, and the fact that Schultz and Rappaport put it out, you already know that it's happening. But it's breaking news. The Rams and quarterback Matthew Stafford are finalizing an agreement to keep him in Los Angeles, despite the relationship getting contentious at times and significant interest from the Raiders and Giants. Both sides were able to hash things out for him to stay in LA. It was also reported that he is going to be taking less money to stay with the Rams because Stafford and his team felt that it didn't make sense to uproot his family, and that staying with Los Angeles gave them the best opportunity to win going forward. So I want to know down below, what is your one-word reaction to Stafford returning to Los Angeles? This was one of those moves that I think a lot of us were starting to think could potentially happen, and now we're sitting here and it doesn't feel great. So what's your one-word reaction to Stafford returning to the Rams? Let me know down below. Mine's deja vu, because I feel like I'm sitting in a world where, you got all these Raiders beat reporters saying that Matthew Stafford's going to be a Raider. It's starting to heat up here a little bit. Stafford ends up going to the Rams. It makes me feel exactly what just happened with Ben Johnson with the Bears. Are people using the Raiders beat reporters to just gain interest in other spots and drive up the asking price? I am frustrated, but I'm also going to sit up here and tell you this. You can't sit around and pout if you're the Raiders. You got to move forward, and now you got to go out and you got to try to find your franchise quarterback, and that's exactly what I will do here on today's show, and it's what I'm going to continue to do this offseason. It's not a secret how important this quarterback position is for all NFL teams, but especially for the Raiders. And if you want more updates around the Raiders, around the NFL Combine, whenever the hell the Raiders decide to either sign or trade for somebody, I am going to be making a video around it because I am a believer that this organization is still looking at bringing in a quarterback during free agency. But if this move hurt just a little bit, I'm not going to lie, I thought about going live. I didn't feel like going live for an hour just being like, yeah, man, this really sucks, this really sucks, this really sucks. So what do we do from here? That's where we're going to discuss next here on the show. So we got to look at the Plan B option because there was a report that came out this morning from Dianna Russini, and this is what she had to say. If the Raiders don't land Stafford, it's unlikely that they're going to make a large financial commitment to another veteran quarterback who's expected to be available this offseason. There are members of the Raiders' offensive coaching staff who prefer adding a proven veteran quarterback to taking a dice roll on a rookie quarterback. The 2025 draft class isn't perceived to be deep at QB, and there's a chance that the only options we're drafting in the first round will be gone by the time the Raiders are on the clock again. So the fact that now that the Raiders missed out on Stafford, if it's up to me, trade up for Cam Ward. I know you're going to have to move up, but there's not another quarterback in this year's draft that you can start in year one. And then if you're worried about spending a lot of money elsewhere, I think Cam Ward's going to be a better option than a lot of those other people that you would try to invest in free agency. I do think, though, that the report that was released was a report to try to show Stafford and his team that the Raiders were all in on him. And I know that what Dianna Russini said, that it's unlikely that the Raiders are going to spend big. I don't know if that's 100% true. I'm not saying what Dianna reported wasn't told to her. I'm simply saying that if you were the Raiders and if you were saying, hey, we're going to show you 110% all of our attention, that's what's going to be reported. Now that Matthew Stafford has missed, now you just got to go back to the drawing board and you got to put all your options on the table. So to me, I know what the report was, but that report came out when there was still a chance that Matthew Stafford could be a Raider. Now that we know 100% that Stafford is staying with the Rams and he's not going to be a Raider, I still think that the Raiders are going to be cautious about going out and signing somebody to a big-time payday, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But to say that that report is still true to this moment, I don't think that that can be 100% a true thing to say. So coming up here, let's get into the Raiders' plan B this offseason, and you can go a bunch of different routes. And at the very end of today's show, I'm going to tell you which quarterback I think is the most likely to be the starting quarterback for the Silver and Black. Hell, I got my top 10 options ranked. I got to show some love to our sponsor here, PrizePicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app out there. I use PrizePicks all the time, and if you're like me, you've probably been watching a lot of the underwear Olympics. Maybe you call it the Combine, and they also have more and less options over there. PrizePicks, though, is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win, up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. So if you're looking up at screen right now, you can see I got some Combine more or lesses up there. If you like it, download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. So you know what? We're going to keep on running our game here at the Raiders Report because that's what you got to do as an organization. It sucks that you missed out on Stafford. It sucks that you missed out on Ben Johnson. But you know what? I love the fact that this Raiders coaching staff looks the way that it does after missing out on Ben. And if they're able to bounce back in that exact same way, then I'm going to keep on being very confident with this organization. And even though they missed out on Stafford, and even though I am bummed, I still have the utmost confidence in this Raiders organization because they have continuously done things the right way. So here's plan B for the Raiders. Your first option that you could look at is the current quarterbacks on your roster. I'm talking about Aidan O'Connell, Gardner, Minshew, Carter, Bradley. That's what that looks like. And I'm sorry, I did not go through the year that I just went through. I have not discussed the things that I have discussed on this show to sit up here and talk about AOC or Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew is a goner, and I know the Raiders like Aidan, but nobody on that Raiders organization right now views AOC as a potential starter. Here's what Dianna Russini reported. Aidan O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and Carter Bradley, but none of them have proven themselves to be a viable starter. Minshew will likely be released this offseason, which it's going to be a post-June 1st, so they'll need to make some sort of addition in the room. One of the things that I was talking about early this offseason was I was told that the Raiders will no matter what trade or sign a quarterback early during the free agency period because they want to be a team where no free agents are going to sign with the Raiders unless they have a quarterback. And the fact that that message was relayed to me and the fact that the Raiders were just so aggressive with Matthew Stafford, I know what the original report is that they might not spend big, but they're still going to have to add another quarterback this offseason. The question is, will he be a starter or not? I don't know. But what I do know, nobody on this current Raiders team is going to be a starter for this team going into 2025. Could you look at potentially another trade option, right? And you're going to look at some other veterans, which I'm going to only talk about vets. Because if the report is the Raiders feel a little bit more confident on relying on a veteran than some of these young rookie quarterbacks, then so be it. But to me, though, Kirk Cousins is too expensive to trade for him. Now, if he gets released by Atlanta, we could maybe revisit that conversation a little bit, but the Falcons reported at the Combine that their plan is to hang on to Kirk Cousins. What about somebody like Geno Smith? I think that this option, again, is probably a little bit too expensive. If the report stands true that the Raiders are unwilling to pay another quarterback big money, not named Matthew Stafford, that means Geno, you got to trade for him, and then on top of that, you'd have to give him a brand new contract. I think that he's too expensive. Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to put a question mark around being too expensive because maybe he would want to take a little bit of a cheaper deal if he's released by the New York Jets. But here's the thing, man. The amount of speculation right now around the Giants that has just sprouted up, I would say, in the past few hours, them being linked to Aaron Rodgers, it's probably because the Giants heard all the smoke around Stafford staying with the Rams, just like the Raiders heard all that smoke. I would say Aaron Rodgers could be a New York Giant, and I don't think that he's going to be a Las Vegas Raider. Here's the young person. It's J.J. McCarthy. I was talking to a source very close to the Minnesota Vikings, and we still don't know what Minnesota could do. Like, if they end up franchise tagging Sam Darnold, well, then McCarthy could be an option that the Raiders go out and trade for. But if the Vikings don't tag Sam Darnold, well, then obviously Minnesota is just going to stick with J.J. McCarthy. Let's now look at plan B for NFL free agency, because I still think that this is going to be one of the routes that the Raiders have to go with. And we can throw out a bunch of different names, which we are going to do here. The first one, though, is Sam Darnold. If you don't want to spend big, the guy that's going to make the most money on the open market for NFL free agency, it's going to be Darnold. Now that he knows that Matthew Stafford is staying and those other quarterbacks that I just discussed are all trades, if the open market is the open market, Darnold is getting the most money on it. But if this report would have never came out, I would have said that the Raiders are going to turn their attention to Sam Darnold, or the Raiders are going to turn their attention maybe to somebody like Russell Wilson, but even he seems like he's a little bit too expensive. And there's been a lot of reports. You got to go back again 2-3 weeks ago. Jay Glazer literally said that Russell Wilson is not going to go to the Raiders, and since that report has come out, literally all the rumors about Russell Wilson and the Raiders have stopped. To me, we got to look at this potential plan B, and I think it's Justin Fields. He's the cheapest, best quarterback on the open market that you'd be able to bring in and be a potential starter. He's still young, and I did a video saying that the number one offensive coordinator that I think could fix Justin Fields is Chip Kelly. And you know that the Raiders want to run the rock very, very heavily. If you want to put in Justin Fields, maybe you draft an Ashton Genty or something like that. Hell, Genty was talking to Pete Carroll today about the art of being a great running back. To me, when I see the report that Dianna Russini came out with, if the Raiders are not willing to spend big, but they still want to look at a veteran quarterback, to me, the number one name that you got to think of is Justin Fields. The name, though, that I got to throw out there, and this is important, it's got to say Plan C, because Zach Wilson would not be somebody that the Raiders would consider as starter, but there is legitimate interest from Las Vegas in terms of Wilson. But I call it Plan C because this is not a starter. This would just be somebody that they would put in the quarterback room to compete with somebody like Aidan O'Connell, and then you would go from there. But if I was the Raiders, I'm not kidding you right now, what I would do, and you might get mad at me, I don't have a problem with them signing Zach Wilson, letting them compete with somebody like Aidan O'Connell, and then you know what you do? You go to the NFL draft, and you go get your starter. To me, the only person that I would consider now at this point, I would trade up to number one for Cam Ward. It's not going to cost you another first-round pick based on some of the conversations that our guys at the Combine have heard. But Cam Ward's the only quarterback in this year's draft that I am confident in that can start right away. And you should hear what Ward had to say about Chip Kelly. We'll be putting out some of those videos here in a little bit later on today or even tomorrow on the Raiders Report. If you want to see all of my rankings on all 15 QBs from the NFL Combine, this video is going to be available to y'all down in the comments and in the description, because I still want people to know all the options out there for the Raiders and what they could potentially do in the draft. So what we're going to talk about is this next. Who the hell is going to be the starter in 2025? I think a lot of us, myself included, was getting excited about Matthew Stafford. Hell, you guys are going to get a video tomorrow on the Raiders Report where I'm sitting there talking about running backs and wide receivers, and I mentioned Stafford's name a few times in that video because when I recorded it, it looked like Stafford was going to be a member of the Silver and Black. So here's what we got to consider, though, with this question. Who's the Raiders starter in 2025? I'm going to show you some of these Dianna Russini quotes / reports again, and then I will give you my top 10 most likely options for the Raiders starting quarterback. So here we go. Dianna, on the Raiders' plan after Stafford, if the Raiders don't land Stafford, it's unlikely that they're going to make a large financial commitment to another veteran quarterback who's expected to be available this offseason. There are members of the Raiders' offensive coaching staff who prefer adding a proven veteran quarterback to taking a dice roll on a rookie quarterback. The 2025 draft class isn't perceived to be deep at QB, and there's a chance that only options we're drafting in the first round will be gone by the time the Raiders are on the clock. So when you hear all that, when you see all that, you could go a bunch of different ways. And the Raiders got to keep all of their options open. So if it was up to me, and if I had the power to say how I would balance what I would do, plus I think what the Raiders are going to do, Here's who I think are the top 10 most likely options to be the Raiders starting quarterback in 2025. I'm going to put Cam Ward at number 1 because the amount of rumors that started sprouting up around Matthew Stafford and around Cam Ward earlier this week, with all the rumors being true around Stafford, I'm going to assume that a lot of those rumors around the Raiders being interested in trading up for Ward at 1 are also true. If Las Vegas doesn't want to spend a lot of money in the open market and they're looking for a vet, the best cheap option is Justin Fields. Though that report was put out when they still had a chance on Matthew Stafford, and now that the Matthew Stafford opportunity has come and gone, I'm going to put Sam Darnold at 3. All those other names, I can make an argument of why they deserve to go up, but I would say right now the clear, and I mean clear, top 3 quarterbacks for the Las Vegas Raiders: Cam Ward, Justin Fields, Sam Darnold. And now that I look at that list, I probably should have put Russell Wilson in there at number 4, maybe at number 5. But bottom line, I would say top 3 QBs: Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, Cam Ward, the most likely options. I'm not saying that they're not going to draft another one, but even if they were to draft a QB, whether it be a Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart, Will Howard, Jalen Milroe, whoever the hell you want to put in that name, none of those guys are going to start this year. That's not the plan. The plan is to let a QB sit for at least 1 year, which is why I'm a little bit flustered right now. We'll see what this team decides to do. Matthew Stafford is staying with the Rams, so what's plan B? I think it's either Sam Darnold, Justin Fields, or for me, I'm trading up for Cam Ward.